I want to talk to you and just pick up where the last session left off and talk about a concept that's mentioned in the book, but go a little deeper, and that is what I would call the truer you. Okay, the truer you. And the reason I want to talk about this is because when you discover your truest identity, people, projects, the world, the enemy, they lose their power to invalidate or to validate you. And that's huge. That's so big because sometimes the better somebody gets in their industry, in their field, or in their craftsmanship, whatever they may be doing, the more and more of their identity gets tangled up in that, infused in that. And so some of the most successful songwriters or singers or actors or storytellers or you name it, fill in the blank, when that goes away, they no longer know who they are because they've given their identity to that, and that identity that they've given to that now has the power to invalidate them because they're not that anymore. So who are they? What are they now? A lot of parents get frozen in a role of a mom or a dad, and they're 80 years old and their son or daughter is 60, and they're still in the mind frame of when their kid was 12. Because their identity was, I'm this, instead of I'm a son or daughter. And I do different things and I pursue different things. So what is the truer you? Well, I'll give you an example. When Jesus comes on the scene, he's walking down the shore and he invites fishermen to follow him. He's basically saying, come into a newer story. Come into a newer, bigger, uncontrollable story with me. And the way he ushers them in is by speaking a new identity. You were fishermen, now you're going to be fishers of men. You were this, and it was a true identity. You knew how to fish, you did it well. That was your craft. Now I'm going to take what you've done and see it's not a disconnect. It's an arc. Fishermen can become fishers of men. We can use that term, but if we're not a fisherman or fisherwoman, we don't really know what all the nuances they do. We don't know all the nuances about the net being cast a certain way, or the time of day to fish, or the lures, or how do you actually catch fish. They knew all those things, and so Jesus was able to say, that's your true identity. Now I want to invite you into a truer identity. Now I want to make you fishers of men. I met a man recently who was an eye doctor, an eye surgeon, and as I was talking to him, he had invested his whole career in running this clinic to help people see. And we were having coffee, and he said, but the thing is, I really don't want to do that anymore. I want to be a writer. But the problem is, I've invested all of my career in being an eye doctor. And it was so cool to be able to help him understand, right, you were helping people see here, now you're giving them eyes to see in story. There's still a continuity. You were an eye doctor, now you're helping people see through story. When you look at what you do now, what you are doing now, maybe in your profession, or spending a lot of time on, well, that's a true version of you, but what could the truer version be? In other words, what can God be inviting you through your dreams to upgrade into? You were this, now become this. And it's something to think about, because oftentimes, otherwise, people see their career as a scattered, kind of nonsensical pattern. Well, I've done this, and I've done this, and I've done this. I don't really know what I should do next. But if you look at it through eyes to see, you go, actually, there's been a common theme in what I've done, and it's leading to this. It was this, now it's this. And sometimes it's hardest for us to see it. So a friend or a spouse or a boyfriend, girlfriend, or somebody you trust could hear part of your story. That's why it's so important to re-see our stories. because somebody can see that and then say, actually, do you not see the pattern there? Like the eye doctor didn't see the pattern at all. And he's really good at seeing things, but he didn't see that because it was too close. It was right here. And a good friend of mine often says, you can't oftentimes read your own label because you're inside the bottle. You're inside the bottle, you see the back of the label. Somebody looking at you or the bottle goes, oh, I can tell exactly what God's been up to. And that's why it's so important that we have God and others, with God, with others. That's what I mean by the truer you. And that will play into your identity, because as a son or daughter, you can then pursue the truer version, perhaps, of what God has been training you and helping you grow in and work on. Okay, now we're going to go to the third vow, okay? Creating with God involves, and I call the vow awaken in the story of With, but it's an awakened heart. So this topic of how do we pursue our gifting in an awakened way, an awakened heart. If we're going to be on the journey we're on, we have to have an awakened heart. We can't go through it with our heart shut down, with our heart numb. In the orphan realm, that's the standard way to deal with the heart, is to shut it down and numb it. Maybe numb it through alcohol, maybe numb it through some other thing that you do for a distraction or pleasure, but it numbs the heart. And nothing great happens without great heart. No story, no life, if the heart is shut down, can have much significance. Because the heart has to come alive. That's what is the lifeblood for what you do and who you are. That's why Proverbs 4:23 says, above all else, nurture or guard your heart. Because it's life. It's the wellspring of life. And, you know, we kind of overlook above all else. Most days, we're lucky if we think about our heart. It certainly isn't the main thing. It certainly isn't the top priority for most of us most days. And to be fair, most of us don't have people in our lives asking much about our hearts. Like, usually your coworkers or your boss aren't going to just pull you aside and say, hey, Bob, how's your heart doing today? You know, most of our spouses don't think to ask that some days, because life is busy, it's fast, it's a lot of stuff, and we don't get graded on our heart most of the time. You know, we don't get paid for how our heart's doing most of the time. We don't get asked that. Kids in school, you know, part of their assignment isn't to take care of their heart, it's to get stuff done. Get it done, get it done, get it done, get it done. And so the heart, though invisible, quickly becomes the main thing, because if we neglect it, we implode. We shut down or we implode. So above all else, we need to nurture our heart. A question to write down in your journal is, what do you specifically do to nurture your heart? God, again, He creates each of us uniquely, gives us unique dreams and desires. So the things that would nurture your heart may not nurture her heart or his heart or my heart. But what is it you do? And a great test for this is, try to put something down that doesn't have efficiency tied to it. Because when it becomes efficient, then it becomes a job. Or then it productivity. I was talking to someone before we started back, and we were talking about productivity is not bad. Productivity is good. But when we start with presence, we handle productivity right. When we start with productivity, we rarely get to presence. Productivity is good and we need it, but the road to productivity in a healthy way is through presence. That's why it's being before doing. Do we still need to do a lot? Do we still need to be productive? Of course. But we do it from a place of presence with God and of being. So what do you do to nurture your heart that is strictly joy? That is strictly for your heart? Let's hear a few examples from people. What do you do regularly to take care of your heart? Worship? Okay. Do you have a certain time, or is it just whenever it fits in each day?
The best time is like on a Sunday morning by myself in the house where I can just pray to that being God.
Okay. Devotions, worship, okay.
Share the word.
Share the word, okay. So share the word with other people? Okay. Visit, okay, yeah.
If it's connected to a lack of productivity, it must be my fly fishing.
Fly fishing. Okay, that's a good one. Oftentimes it's where you'll hear God the most. For me, I, like most of the guys I work with, love to hunt. And I don't have anything against hunting, I'm just not a hunter. But what I do love to do, and they hear from God when they're out, in the wilderness. I love going to work out at the gym, and I hear from God when I'm in the gym. And it's indoors, not outdoors. And it's not the only place I hear from God. But when I go there, I'm not trying to get to a certain weight. I'm not trying to increase, I'm not making it productivity. I'm not saying, okay, I lifted this much last time, now I've got to lift this much more. And in a month, I've got to do this. Goals are fine, but for me, that would kill the joy of just, I'm going in here. I don't have a piece of paper. I don't have a pen. I'm not measuring. I'm not monitoring. I'm simply enjoying working out with God. And I hear his voice really clear in that process. I may come in with this question I haven't been able to figure out or haven't been able to hear him very clearly. And an hour and a half later, I'm walking out and I know what he's saying. Where is that place for you? What is that thing that you do? And it may not be the same thing every day. And it may not even be every day, but above all else is a pretty high priority. So in your mind, every week, there needs to be time you're setting aside, even if it's 5 minutes, even if it's one song, even if it's, I had to go through this stage a while back where, okay, I can't work out for an hour and a half, but I've got 20 minutes. And I used to go, well, forget it. It's just a waste of time. It's just more irritating to go for 20 minutes and turn around. But I'll take 20 minutes if I have 20 minutes because it's a way I care for my heart. What do you do to nurture your heart? Because without that, when the heart goes numb, everything else starts to fall apart. Everything else starts to cave in. There's a sign in Colorado we see a lot that says, I took this picture on the side of the road, do you have defensible space? And of course, it's talking about when fires kick in, it can jump from tree to roof in about half a second. And so the sign is saying, make sure you have a boundary around your house without trees too close. That's the defensible space. My question to you is, with your heart, do you have defensible space? Do you have a boundary where the crisis and the world's issues can't immediately implode on your heart? If you're nurturing your heart, if it's the wellspring of life, there's water, there's life, you're good. Your heart's protected. If you don't, then somebody looks at you the wrong way and it affects your heart. Somebody says something and you take offense and all of a sudden your heart shuts down. So what are you doing to nurture, to guard, to protect your heart? Does it have defensible space? In the story of With, I go into the deserts, and I just want to talk about that a little bit because our hearts can shut down when we find ourselves in deserts. Now, what I mean by deserts, in the story, there's a literal desert that Mia finds herself in. But in life, what I mean is, where are those places where everything seems to dry up, where you shut down, where you get stuck, where you feel isolated or lost? And there's different deserts. Like, there's a desert of despair, and that's what you face. But the person next to you never has even been to that desert. But they may have a desert of loss, and they constantly feel lost in their life. They constantly feel isolated, alone. So think of where you feel lost, parched, isolated. And we're going to put some up on the board just to show how many there are. So think of, yours would be the desert of what? And I don't want to give a lot of examples because I don't want to name what somebody might say. But what is a desert that you find yourself in? What is that theme or topic or feeling that kind of makes you feel like you're just stuck and isolated? Anybody want to share one?
My family of origin.
Okay. So I'm just going to write some up here. Family of origin. Okay. Who else? Just shout one out.
Overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed? Yes. Okay. Okay. Not enough time. It's a big one. Anxiety. Okay. Comparison. Okay.
Emptiness.
Emptiness. What else? Fear. One more. Joylessness. Okay. So there's more than one, obviously, that each person can find themselves in. But these deserts, it's interesting because they're designed by the enemy to take us out specifically. It's made up of the things that derail or that defeat us. And in the story of With, when Mia finds herself in the desert, she doesn't even want to go into it. So for those of you who've read it, she tries to stay in the elevator, run back into the elevator, get away from the desert, but she has to go through the desert as part of her quest to make it to this place of freedom. And we do too. We can't just pretend the deserts don't exist. But what are the things that derail or defeat us? And the enemy in the story of With tries to tell me a lie, which is the way to get out of the desert is in your own strength. And the more she tried to do that, what ended up happening to her? She was sinking, it became like quicksand. And she was sinking because we don't get out of the desert in our own strength. That just causes us to sink a little faster. Our way of escape is really two parts. We need to know and name our deserts first. We need to know this is what gets me. A desert of never enough time, or people are messy, or comparison, or overwhelmed, or anxiety. This is the thing that starts to take me out. It's the kind of thing that can land you back in the orphan realm. And so when you start sensing this is happening, the first thing is to know it and go, I'm not surprised. This is the tack the enemy often uses on me. What he uses on her doesn't work on me. What he uses on me doesn't work on you. Okay, but what is your desert? You have to know and name it. Then you have to realize you can't set yourself free, right? Like, it's not just you. but we need to hold firm to God. James 4:7 is just an incredible passage. And resist the enemy, and then he'll flee. So the first part is hold firm to God. Do this with God, not in your own strength, with God. And it starts with God. And then from that place of identity, we resist the enemy from our identity as a son or daughter in God. And it says, then the enemy will flee. It's an active process. It's a very active process. And a great prayer to have is for hiddenness a lot of times. You know, God, protect us in what we're doing. Keep us hidden from the enemy's schemes. Watch over us. Give us advanced words. Before we'll do boot camp or go to a men's event or a women's event, we'll ask for advanced words. Where is the enemy? What is the enemy up to? How do we stay protected in God? God, what do you have for this? What do you want us to do? Where do you want us to go in this? What is your theme? What is your mission? It's a mission. Our life is on mission with God. And we need to take that part seriously. We need to not fear the enemy, not hyper-focus on the enemy. He loves attentions. He's an egomaniac. So don't give him too much attention, but resist. Know he's there and resist the enemy with God, and he'll flee. That's part of who you are in Christ now as a son or daughter. We get to call on him to help us, and then we actively get to resist. The fourth vial in the story of with, and the one we're going to talk about is called Together in the Book. I'll refer to it here as intimacy. If you're going to pursue your dreams, if you're going to step into that with God, a huge part of changing the atmosphere and bringing something new into existence is intimacy with the Father. It's to me, if you miss that, so many other things fall apart. It's why you have heart. It's why you know you're a son or daughter. It's why you're expectant. A quote from the book is, with God, the priority is always presence over performance, intimacy over independence. Think of intimacy with God like a father and a daughter, with the father teaching the daughter how to dance. Her foot is on his foot, her shoes on his shoes. He's showing her how to enjoy music and dance together. But the purpose isn't so she'll be a perfect dancer. The purpose is intimacy. The purpose is doing it together. The joy on her face, the laughter, the dress she's wearing, the proximity of them, father, daughter together. That's what I mean by intimacy. It's being close to God in everything you do, not out of a forced closeness or a religious closeness, but a deep love and intimacy of presence. When Chase was in the car with me, you know, and I showed you that scene where we were in the truck, what I didn't say then was he would lift up the console and want to sit leg touching leg, shoulder touching shoulder. He didn't just want to be with me, he wanted to be right with me. He didn't just want to know I was driving, he wanted to be as close as he could be for the trip we were going to take together. Why? Intimacy. That's what God invites us into in our dreams and in our creativity. It's an active, intimate way to pursue what we love with him. Is it your thought or is it God's thought that you change this design element, or that you make this phone call, or that you write this paragraph in a novel, or that you cook this dish or try this ingredient? God's call or your call? Yes, both. He's coming alongside you. He's stirring ideas. He's guiding you. He's telling you, run here, slow down here. That's why at the beginning of this section, when I said creating with God is like, well, is it like Jason Bourne and bullets flying? and your life is at stake? Yes. Is it like playing an instrument with your Father in pure joy? Yes. Is it like running a race that you don't even have the right equipment to run, but your heart's awakened? Yes. Is it like a child in his father's truck saying he'll go wherever you go? Yes. And how do you capture all that in one picture? Intimacy and bullets and together and expectancy and a heart that's awakening. But that's what it's all like when you create with God. That's why there's mystery and beauty and risk all together. And so at any one given moment, when somebody says, well, how's that going on what your dream is? How's that coming together? It's sometimes hard to say in a sentence or two. That's why you need fellow bohemians who can get it in a couple of words. You know? That's why you need a group like this to go through your dreams with. So we're going to keep talking about this, but I just want to say, yes, it's all of those things that come together. The journey changes when it becomes about relationships rather than our inadequacies, why we can't do something in our own strength. Right, we don't want to do it in our own strength. And why it's not also about our inheritance, meaning it's not about what we get and it's not about what we lack. It's about who we get to do it with. It's about the process of entering in with the Father in relationship in the very things that make us come alive. Okay, I'm going to add one more here. Creating with God involves inefficiency. Now, this was implied in the book. It wasn't one of the vials. It wasn't a fifth item. But I just want to add this one in, insert it in here for our conversation, because it's the most disruptive, probably, of all of the things we're going to talk about. The goal when you're with God is to live a wildly unbalanced life. The world tells us we can live a balanced life. But I think it's impossible. I think it's impossible, because think of all the things that we would have in our life to do. So I'm just going to write down, you guys call out some of the things that are involved in your average day. Just name one, each person can name one or two. Cooking. Laundry. Grocery. What was that? Eating? Meeting. I like eating. Okay, I'm hungry. Okay. Commuting. Okay. What was that? Thinking a way to, okay. Caregiver. Counseling. What about fun things too? Or there's the yard. Got to take care of the yard. Got to take care of the pet. Kids. Exercise.
Waiting.
Calls. Waiting.
Fixing her car.
Repairs.
Paying bills.
Bills. So, and there's not even a lot of pleasure, like fun, just joy things in there. I mean, a lot of these have some of that aspect, but to try to think you can have a balanced life and all of those things can fit in is a fool's game. It doesn't add up. It won't add up. And so what I'm encouraging you to do is to live a wildly unbalanced life, spending the most time with what matters most and just enough time for everything else. Does that mean your yard may not look as good as it could? Maybe. Does it mean you have to eat out fast food more than cook, even though you love to cook and it's better for you, but there's just not time? Maybe. Does it mean you could go through each one of these, but it's saying, what is the main priority and how do you live that way from the things that eternally matter the most? And give your best to those things. The gym I work out at has a slogan. The slogan of the gym is, it's a lifetime gym, and the slogan is, you can do it all in your lifetime. And I get the double play on words, but the feeling from the posters is, you can kind of do it all. You can do it all. No, you can't. No, you can't. You can't do it all. You can't have the perfect kept home, a lot of attention with your kids and time with your kids, a deep walk with God, 5 hobbies, serve on 3 boards, have a ministry, have a pet, have vacation times every so often, have date nights. Like, you cannot do it all. And that's why so many people are striving and stressed out. So what do you want to live for most in a wildly unbalanced life? What are the main things? What goes along with that is, what doors of distraction do you keep trying to open or close? When you find a little time, we oftentimes fill it so quickly with things, and then we wonder why we're so busy. And this happened to me just a few weeks ago. I got off of a trip, and I had 2 days off because I was working over the weekend. And so Kelly and I were sitting at the breakfast table, and we were talking about, it was that Monday morning, and I was telling her all the things I had to do. And none of those were tied to my job. It was a breakfast meeting with a friend who I wanted to pour into, and then I needed to get this other project done I had committed to help somebody with, and then I needed to do this and that, and this was supposed to be restoration time. And Kelly was really quick to say, you're overextending yourself and overcommitting. You're not caring for your heart, and then distraction is coming in because you're trying to do everything. You're trying to do it all, and it's ultimately soul killing. So what I did was I started canceling things. I can't go to that breakfast in an hour. I'm sorry. I can't make this project deadline that I tried to help on. I can't do this. I'm not going to say yes to the next thing. It was both getting rid of things currently in the way that I had, out of a good heart, tried to do, and it was changing how I schedule things between now and the rest of the year. And it was a realization that you can't do it all. You can't be the savior or the helper or the come-through person for everybody. And soul care starts to go way down. So what are those areas of distraction that you find yourself being pulled into, and any moment that something does come up as free time, you fill it? Another thing that I want to talk to you about are open and closed doors. Because when we're talking about an inefficient way of life, and by that I just simply mean God is less worried about efficiency than he is transformation. God is far less worried about efficiency and far more worried about our transformation. And so we get to journey with God in a way that may feel like, boy, this took 6 months. If God had only told me this, we could have done it in 2 minutes. But the goal isn't 2 minutes. The goal is transformation. It's a father raising a son or daughter. Open and closed doors. This is something that I think will revolutionize how you see opportunity and how you make decisions. And we talk in the book about it some. There's a point literally where Mia has all these open doors and doors she has to figure out. And the reason I did that was because so often in our life, we will try to use logic and say, okay, well, I really want to work at this industry, or I really want to go to one of these universities. And so I've given my application to 3 places. And 2 have come back no, rejections. 1 said yes. That must be God's will. Well, is that God's will because that door is open? I don't know. Because here's the thing, the enemy can open doors really well too. And those doors can be doors just to distract you. They may not be bad choices. They may just be a distraction from what God's trying to do. So say there's 3 doors, three options, right? And 2 come back with a no. Well, the tendency is we'll go for the open door. Must be God's will. He knows I need a job. This is the one that said yes. Or he knows I need into this place. This is the one that said yes. But the question is, God, are you opening that door? Is that door from you? See, that's where it goes back to relationship and conversation. God, are you opening this door? I see the door's open. Is that from you? Because God may say, actually, I want you to hang out at this door because I'm going to show you how to unlock a locked door. Part of raising you up is to show you what to do when things look like they won't open. And so actually, I want you to stay here with me. We're going to learn how to unlock a door that's locked. But it looks closed, and if you're just looking at closed and open doors, you'd never do that. That's why intimacy and relationship with God are far more important than just reading the signs. I mean, an agnostic or an atheist makes decisions that way of 2 said no, 1 said yes, go with the yes. Or what happens if 3 say yes? All 3 say, yeah, come. Well, then our normal policy or kind of thought process is, okay, well, let me get a pro-con list. And we'll figure this out. We'll figure this out. This job pays more. This job is a location I like better. This job has this benefit and this benefit, but this has this drawback. And we start to reason it out. And in the process, if we're not intimately, actively asking God, we're like the guy with Jason Bourne. So we think we have the answer and we stand up and we get shot in the head. And then we wonder where the bullet came from or where God was. Okay? And so what I'm saying is, if there's 3 openings, God, which one do you want? Do you want us to pursue this? Listen, wait. If you have a spouse or a friend, pray with them, see what they're hearing, see what you're hearing. You may not know. You may not hear anything. It may be the next day you circle back, and the next day you circle back. But open and closed doors all of a sudden, you won't find yourself in these weird situations where a year later you're like, yeah, I thought God wanted us here because it was the one that said yes, and we said okay, and now everything's crazy, and we hate this. And sometimes the hard reality is, well, God never said go there. It was just a door that the enemy opened or that blew open. But God never said go into that door. And you didn't wait to listen. So oftentimes, the questions are not only, God, what do I do? But God, when do I do it? Maybe all 3 doors open and God says, yep, but not now. Not now. Soon, not now. In a few years maybe. It's not just what but when, but it's that posture of a son or a daughter with the Father making decisions intimately, actively, expectantly with Him. And it really changes how you view decisions. In the story of With, the only door Mia could ultimately go through was the one that she went through together with God. All the other doors, some weren't bad, they were just distractions trying to keep her from actually getting into freedom. There's a lot of doors that will open up in the orphan realm where you can continue being an orphan. But what you want is, and God may say, all 3 are fine, you pick. There may be choices. When Kelly and I were trying to decide whether to go to the ministry in Colorado Springs, we were in Tennessee. Everything was really pretty great from salary to 20 years with a company, a division I had started, team I had handpicked, authors I had handpicked. We loved our neighborhood. We loved our school for the kids. Really idyllic in so many ways. And when the ministry called and John said, hey, would you like to work at Ransomed Heart? My answer was basically a kind no thank you. Like, wow, this is cool. I love the ministry. It's done so many great things in our world, and we're good. We're good here. We'll keep coming to the events. And John was just incredible. He was like, okay, hey, that's totally fine, but here's the deal before you hang up. We've already been praying here, and God's already told us you're coming. And so why don't you ask him before you decline? You and Kelly get together and ask him, and then get back to me tomorrow. Just call me tomorrow. And I was dumbfounded on it was one of those speechless moments where you're like, he's right. I didn't even ask God. And so we prayed, and we actually had more than overnight, but immediately we began to sense God saying, go. It's an invitation from me. You can go. And we kept wanting a hard yes or a hard no. Just tell me yes or tell me no. I'm sensing directionally yes, but this is a huge move, God. Tell me yes or no. And as I talk about in the book, he gave me this vision. I just was praying, and I saw these 2 horses in a corral. And I saw this older rancher in the back of the corral, and he was just smiling. And his question was just, do you want to ride? Do you want to ride? If you want to ride, here's the stallions. I've got it ready. Do you want to? And it was so much more honoring and beautiful as a father to hear that invitation than just give me a yes or give me a no. Scream a yes or no loudly, and I'll just do whatever. Just tell me that word, yes or no. I just want a word. Instead, he gives us a relationship. Do you want to ride? And in that dream or that vision, as we started and got on the horses, there was a 3rd horse, and he was riding with us. It wasn't just us. It was us with God. So that's what I mean with, you have to enter into not just as an opportunity opening up. God, is that from you? Boy, it looks like there's no opportunity, but you're saying stay. Okay, you must be opening a door that's totally barricaded, or I don't even see a door, but you're saying go there anyway. It's different every time, but you want to step into the adventure God has for you, not notice just which doors open and close. Enemy can open doors. God can close doors. God can train us how to get through a closed door. God can give us myriads of choices. God can have one specific choice. How do you know? You ask him. It's intimacy. It's active.